Okay, start share screen. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, if you have any questions during this session, you can use the chat feature, and you can ask your question through there, or I'll try to stop and ask if anybody has questions, and you can unmute your mic and ask a question then. Or you can always just use that chat feature. And Mary's going to watch the chat feature for me, and she'll let me know if you have a question as well. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do when logging in the Nearpod is you can go to any search engine. It doesn't really matter what search engine you use. You could use Google, for example. I think most people are probably most familiar with that one. You just type in Nearpod, and then you would click on this first one that comes up. It's nearpod.com. So we're going to click on that. And then at the upper right hand corner, you'll see where it says login. So you'll click on login. And then there's a button here that you can use. It says login with Google. Now, I highly recommend that you use login with Google because it makes the login very seamless and very easy. So if you click login with Google, it'll automatically log you in the Nearpod. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that in order for it to automatically log you in, you do have to already be logged into your Western Heights account. So what you'll see up here at the top right hand corner, you want to make sure that you're logged into your Western Heights account. That's very important. And the reason why that's so important is because if you're not logged into your Western Heights account, it will actually ask you if you want to pay for certain lessons and things like that. So we have all the material that's in Nearpod is unlocked, free of charge, but you have to make sure you're logged into your Western Heights account. And in order to double check that, you just click on that little person icon up here, and then you'll see your name, and it will say at westernheights.k12.ok.us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, if I log out of here and then say I go back to Google, and then let's say that I log out of Google, I'm going to show you the difference, what it looks like. So if I log out, see how I'm logged into Google already? That's why I just have to do the one-click login. If I log out of here, and see I'm no longer logged in. So if I'm no longer logged in and I go back to Nearpod, and I try to log in this time, the only difference is I have to now log in. So I'm still going to click login with Google. But now the only difference is it's going to ask me, it says, well, which account do you want to use? That's my personal account, and then this is my school account. So I want to make sure that I'm using that school account. So I'm going to click on school account. And then I'm going to put in my password. And now I'm logged in. So as long as I don't log out of Google, it'll stay logged into Nearpod. I just do that one-click login. Does anyone have any questions about how to actually log in the Nearpod to get into your account?
There's none in the chat so far.
Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to look for how to add lessons to my library. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to look over here to the left-hand side of my screen. It says Nearpod Lesson Library. I want to click on that. And this will bring up all the lessons and all the material that has been added to the actual library for Nearpod. Let's say that I'm trying to find something on fractions. So I type in fractions. Now, if I type in fractions, it's going to give me every single lesson available that has to do with fractions. And down here at the bottom of the screen, it'll say, it'll just keep loading and loading and loading. There's lots and lots and lots of material and lots of different lessons available on fractions. So what I really want to do is, instead of spending a lot of time to go through every single lesson and trying to figure out, well, which one out of these 50 or 60 lessons do I actually want to use? What I could use is I can go over here to the left-hand side, and let's say, for example, that I'm teaching 4th grade and I'm doing a lesson on fractions. Well, what I want to do is I can go over here and I can click on 4th grade, and now it really narrows down the amount of lessons that are available to me that are tailored to my grade level. So I can see up here that these lessons, these different types of lessons are meant for 4th graders. So let's say, for example, that I'm looking for how to multiply and divide equivalent fractions. Let's say I'm looking for this type of lesson. So what I would do is I would click on this lesson. And then what I would recommend doing is, I would preview it before I actually add it to my library. And the reason for that is that I want to make sure that it's something that I'm actually going to use. So I'm going to click preview, and then I can see up here there's 27 slides. So once I get done looking through all the different slides and all the material, then I can actually see, well, okay, yeah, this is something that I want to use. This is something that I would actually teach my kids. So at that point, I can add it to my library. Now, if it's something that I don't want to use, I can just go back, or I can go back to my search. So let's say it's something that I do want to use. I'm going to click add the library. It's going to show that it downloaded, and now it says show in my library. So I'm going to click on show in my library. So this actually goes to my library, and then I have a couple of options as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my library. It's this little house up here. And I can see that it's been added here into my library. Are there any questions about how to add lessons to the library?
Carol asked, how do you go back to search?
Okay, so say, for example, let me go back to Nearpod Lesson Library. So say, for example, I did that fractions one. Back to 4th grade. Okay, so this is the one that I clicked on. So let's say, for example, that this isn't one that I actually want to use after previewing it. So the easiest way would just be to hit this back button. So it takes me back. And that way I still have all the lessons for fractions brought up under fourth grade. So now let's say, well, instead of doing that one, I kind of like this. Let's say that, well, I kind of like this identifying fractions on a number line. Let's say I want to do that one instead. So then I could just click on that. And then once I go in, I can preview that one as well. And then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and add it to my library. Now, if I want to go all the way back, I would just click on this little house here where it says My Library. Were there any other questions, Mary?
No. Do we want to show them where that is on the iPad app, Sean?
Do you have your iPad available?
Yes.
Okay, would you mind doing that?
Sure. Okay. No. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is the plus sign up top on the bar line, is that for multiple screens to do the same thing?
Are you talking about the little hamburger sign?
No, the plus sign.
That's where you're going to create lessons.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So give me a thumbs up if you can see the new screen where it has in big letters, what would you like to do? Okay. So this is what the iPad app looks like when after you've opened it up and logged in. So Sean's showing you the website, the Nearpod website. This is what the app looks like. And it doesn't have as many features as the website does, but you go to your library by clicking on My Library. And you can see lessons that have been downloaded. And if you click the house, it takes you back to that screen. And the way that you're going to search in the app is by clicking Explore. And then clicking on Nearpod Lesson Library. But if you notice, unlike the website, it doesn't have the choices to narrow everything down like Sean was showing you. So that's kind of a disadvantage of the app. But you can use your iPad and go to the website instead of using the app, and then it'll give you the same features that Sean's showing you. And I will stop sharing. So you've got the floor again.
All right. Yeah, if you have access to, it's definitely recommended that you use the web version instead of the app, especially from the teacher side, because you don't have nearly as many options through the app. So you want to make sure that you use the web version if you can. Okay. Okay, so the next part that I want to show you here is how to actually create folders or modules. So a question that was brought up just a little bit ago was about, well, what is this plus sign is? So this plus sign, like Mary had mentioned, is to create. So this is actually where you would create your folders. So you would just click on this plus sign and then click on folder. And then let's say that I want to name this folder Eureka Math. So I'm going to click create. And now I have a brand new folder. So if I go back to my lessons, I can see here that I now have a brand new folder. So I'm going to click on that folder. and then I'm going to hit this little drop down arrow key. And then if you're the type of person who likes to be super organized, or maybe you like to color code things to help you better find material and find it easier or quicker, then you can also color your folders. So say I want to color this purple, so I know that's my math folder. And so I also have my red folder, blue and yellow. But say I want to color it purple, so that way I know that's my math. And then the next thing that I could do is I can actually create subfolders within this folder to keep my stuff even more organized, which comes in handy, especially if you're like me and you're not always extremely organized. So what you can do is you can actually create these subfolders. So what you would do is you would go in and then you would click add folder. And let's say I'm going to call this module 1. So now I have a subfolder within this folder. So if I click on Eureka Math, it'll actually show up. It'll show up right here, module 1. So I can stick in. So say, for example, I have a lot of lessons that might be tied to module 1. Well, then I can just stick those lessons in here in module 1 so I know exactly where they're at. So now I'm in module 1, and I can also color these too. I don't have to, but I can. And then let's say that I want to add another one. Let's say I want to do another module. So all I have to do is go back to this folder, the main folder, Eureka Math, and then click add folder and module 2. So that'll stick module 2 in there. So now I have a folder called module 2. So I have module 1, module 2. So I can keep going if I have multiple modules. Are there any questions so far about how to make a folder or making modules or subfolders? Mary, did we have anything in the chat? You're muted.
Sorry about that. The only thing we had in the chat was Alyssa asked why her stops at subplan. She's not seeing the create button, and it's probably because her screen isn't enlarged enough.
Okay. Have you tried to enlarge your screen?
I'm using a laptop, and when I click on the plus, it only has lesson in Google Slides, lesson in Nearpod, and subplan.
Ah, okay. So we may need to look at your account then. All right.
Are you logged into your Western Heights account too?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I may need to look at your account and make sure that you're under user. That may be the issue. So
okay.
I will write. Okay.
Okay. Did we have any other questions about adding folders?
Yeah, Sweeney and Mary, I would sort of take you back just a second. I kind of joined this late yesterday and today. So have we made a decision on whether we're using Nearpod? And if so, we have, or we can use Nearpod or Google, or we're only sticking with Nearpod. Which one is?
No, we have all the Google suite already. We've had that for a long time, so people can still use Google, but we are doing Nearpod.
Okay, just wanted to know. So secondly, I mean, I know I'm in administration. What I would like to know is, can I just kind of set up an account to see, so I just see what's going on? I can, obviously this is something that we as administrators will need to do, but I'd like to be just go ahead and do that and set it up, and it will easily escalate with the school account, with Western Heights email account, then, like you've been saying.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody has an account, a Western Heights email account, and everybody should. I've only found one person so far that wasn't in because they were hired at the end of the year. but everybody
Okay.
should have an account where they can log into. You should already be inside the Nearpod account.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Cheers.
It's also a good idea too to make sure that when you have a chance, if you've not had a chance yet, to kind of just go in and log in and play around with it too, because the easiest way to learn how to use a program like Nearpod is just to go in and play around with it and try adding lessons yourself and just have fun with it.
Mhm.
Did we have any other questions about how to add folders?
No, no questions on that.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to show you next is I'm going to show you how to delete a folder. And also I'm going to show you how to permanently delete a lesson. Just in case, let's say that you're teaching a different grade level another year, or maybe it's a lesson that you no longer use, or maybe it's a folder that you no longer need. So the way to do that is to click, if you want to delete a folder, is you actually click on the folder. So we're going to delete this one called Eureka Math. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to click on this arrow, this drop down arrow. It's the same way you would add a folder, but instead I'm going to go to where it says remove. There's a little trash can. So I'm going to click remove. Now, if you delete this folder, it's going to delete all the subfolders as well. So you want to make sure that when you decide to delete it, that you're okay with deleting all the subfolders and everything else that's actually in the folder. Now, there is a safeguard, because the cool thing is let's say that I do delete this folder. It's still going to keep whatever lessons I had in the folder. It's going to kick them back out, and it's going to keep them here. It's going to enable me to keep them here in the actual library. So for this equivalent fractions, it's gonna stay in here. So let's say that I want to permanently delete the lesson. In order for me to permanently delete a lesson, I got to click on these little, I always call them little hamburger buttons. I click on that, and then I go down to where it says delete, and that'll permanently delete the lesson. Are there any questions about how to delete folders or how to permanently delete lessons?
No, there were questions about how to share the lessons.
Okay. So I'm actually going to go over that next. Okay, so the next part, and that's a great question. The next part is that we're going to talk about the difference between a live lesson and a student-paced lesson, and then how we're actually going to share the lesson to our students. So what I really like about Nearpod is that it gives us the ability to actually, especially for times like this where kids are working at home by themselves, and it gives us the ability to actually use a student-paced lesson. So say, for example, I click, let's say that I want to do this one student-paced. So I click on that, student-paced. What it's going to do is it's going to bring up a code, and this is the code that the students will use. And I want to make sure that I turn this on. And the reason why I want to make sure that this is turned on is because it says require student submissions. In my opinion, it's important to make sure that it's turned on, because if it's not turned on, then you could potentially have students that are just skipping through things and just going through it without actually submitting answers and things like that. So you want to make sure that that's turned on. The next thing that I can do is I can actually adjust the date of when it's due by. So let's say that that you and students are working from home, you're doing online, they're doing online learning, then I want to click on, I can click on the date. And let's say that I want to give my students a week to get that week's lessons done. So I can click on, let's say if I assigned it today, I want to click on the 27th. So including today, it's going to say, well, I have 6 days remaining, so I have a week, they have a week to do it. So the next thing that I want to do is I actually want to hit apply. So now you can see that it's been changed. So instead of saying 29 days, it says 6 days. Now, if there's a student that, say there's a student who, oh, I don't know, was on vacation or something like that, or they were sick for a couple of days and they couldn't get online to complete the lesson. Well, I can always go back into the lesson. I can always I can change this, or I can reassign it to that particular student. So that can always be done as well. Are there any questions about how to set up a student-paced lesson?
No, there's no questions on that. We did have someone ask about pre-K lessons because it just shows kinder through high school. The pre-K lessons are tied to the kindergarten lessons. It'll say in the corner pre-K through kinder.
Do you want me to show an example of that, Mary?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
So Nearpod is free for the students?
Yes, Nearpod is free for students. They don't have to, parents don't have to pay anything to use it.
The district bought us the whole package that we can use. And Sean will show you the rest of the things in just a minute. There are not as many pre-K as there are K, but a lot of them can be adapted to pre-K. But there are some that says pre-K slash.
Is there a particular one you were looking
No, we
for?
didn't have a particular one. Yeah, there's the different sounds and things.
So like if you want to do the letter B, if you want to work on that. And the other thing that I want to say too about that is that Mary will also be doing the level 2, where you can actually she'll go over kind of how to edit it, and that way that let's say that you're for example, like if you want to make it your own, so to speak, I mean, you can get rid of certain slides, like you could get rid of the one that says, you know, this is from Mara. And let's say that there's some material in here that you feel like is really good for pre-K. But let's say that there's also some material in here that you feel like is a little higher than what you would like to do for pre-K. let's say it's geared more towards kindergarten, then Mary's going to go over that too, where you can actually go in and you can edit it and then make it your own, so that way it's something that is tailored to pre-K. Does that help answer your question as well?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the other thing that you can use in Nearpod is called live lesson. So the way I kind of think of this is in real time. So if let's say that you're in the classroom, then and if it's something that you want to do with the students and teach the students as they're learning the material, then you want to use live lesson. So I'm going to click on live lesson. And then it's going to give my students a code. So from their, say from like their Chromebooks or their iPads, they're going to open up their Nearpod, and then they're going to enter this code in Nearpod. And once they enter the code, and where you can put the code, you could use you could use your projector, you could use your document camera, you could just write it on the board. It's whatever's easiest for you. So they're going to put that code in. Once everyone has put the code in, you can click this X button, and then this is what it will look like. So as you're going through this on your computer, this is what the students will see as well. So every part of this slide, the student will also see this. My internet's running a little slow right now. Okay, there we go.
Sean, are you talking about like doing this in the classroom, or are you talking about doing this virtually?
You could do this. You can do this in the classroom. You could also do a live lesson virtually. However, I would not necessarily, the way to do it virtually would be, say for example, you have a class time where all of your students meet you on Zoom. Then what I would do is I would just go ahead and I would do the live lesson. But let's say, for example, that you want students to work on this lesson at their own pace, and you give them that week or a couple of days or 2 weeks or whatever it is you decide to give them, then I would do a student-paced lesson instead.
So you'd be doing a Nearpod lesson through the Zoom app?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. You could do a screen share, and you could do you could have it up on your computer, and then students could also have it up on their computer.
Okay. On one of those kindergarten lessons you were showing, it was telling the child to write the letter B 2 times. Well, do they do that on their iPad? Do they actually write on it?
Yep. They take their finger and they can actually on the screen they can actually trace it with their finger on their iPad screen.
So they would have to have a touch screen device.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the things that we're looking at a lot of different things. Nothing's set in stone, but we are looking at possibly each student having a device. If we do have to either continue distance learning, or we go back to school and then they send us home for 2 months, in September or October. So we're looking at possibly each student having a device so that they can do these lessons with their teacher. And we're also looking at Wi-Fi hotspots for families that don't have internet. So we're looking at different things to try to make the distance learning better for everyone.
And were there any other questions about live lessons or self-paced? Anything in the chat, Mary?
Well, I have a quick question. So if if we're doing a live meeting with Zoom with the class, they would just have to have the Nearpod open as well, to switch between
Yes.
screens in their device.
Yep.
And we would just have to, like one of the other instructors said about making sure they have clear instructions before they enter the meeting so they'll know the directions. And okay.
Yeah. What I would do too, I mean, what I would do is I would spend the time to actually teach your students the basics and what to do too. That way, it's if you do decide to use this in a live format, that way it's not so chaotic for you. So I would definitely spend the time to actually teach them the basics and kind of how to use it first. As far as the student view goes, you could do like I'd do like maybe a demo lesson with them just to kind of get them familiar with it.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good.
You're welcome.
Sean, this is Cindy. That is only if you haven't added it to Google Classroom, correct? Or do they still have to have the Nearpod app open alongside Google Classroom?
Yeah, yeah, that would be something that that you could use. Uh, technically speaking, you don't have to have Google Classroom in order to use the app or to use a live lesson with your class.
Okay.
But having a platform like your Google Classroom or like your Apple Classroom, things like that. I mean, that does certainly help.
Okay. Thank you.
Google
welcome.
Classroom, you could push out the code to them, but they would
Yeah.
still have to open the app or
Yeah.
open the website to put that code in where you join.
I understand. That answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, mine was just specifically for Zoom and Nearpod.
Yep. Yep. It'll work with it'll work with Zoom. Yep.
That's all the questions in the chat right now.
Okay. Well, I think we touched base on everything here that we want to do. Is there anything else you can think of, Mary?
Would you just show them the different libraries that we have purchased that are available over to the bottom?
Oh, sure. Yep. So we have over here, we have the district library, also your school library. So for example, let's say that you create your own lesson, or say that it's something that you really want to share with either your school or the entire district, then you can actually do that through Nearpod as well. And there's also going to be a PD later today on that, how to create your own lesson in Nearpod 2. So if you click on school library, it'll show your it'll show your school name, and then if you've had teachers that have added it to the library, it'll show up in here. Another really neat feature that I had mentioned is this district library. So say that you want to share it out to the district. So say, for example, that, say you're teaching a kindergarten at John Glenn. Well, say that you want to be able to share this to other kindergarten teachers, not just the teachers at John Glenn, then you could actually share the lesson to the district and then it'll actually appear in here. Are there any questions about the school or district library?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Mary, you uploaded those things that Chris and Parker worked on for the ELA. Is that something that we can pull from the school library?
We can put them on Nearpods. Yeah, we would have to create Nearpods for them and put them on there. If there's some kind of PowerPoint that he's made or something like that, all we would have to do is just transfer it over to Nearpod and we could add whatever we wanted to.
I was thinking mainly of the pre-assessment test and the post-assessment test.
We can put those, yeah, we can put those digitally in Nearpod and have them take the pre-assessments and the post-assessments in Nearpod. And if it's like multiple choice or whatever, the Nearpod slide will actually grade it for you and give you a report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. I will show you how to do a lot of that this afternoon. And if you look on his screen over to the bottom left, above where it says reports, we also have purchased all those packages. So for ELL teachers, we purchased a packet. The Learning Labs is training for you guys on Nearpod. There's digital citizenship, which we should all be teaching our students about plagiarism and privacy and things like that. College and career exploration for all grades, historical perspectives, and then that social and emotional learning. There's all kinds of lessons in there for pre-K through high school. So they've heard the whole deal for us.
Mary, where did that come from that we're just looking at? That ELA and the Nearpod Learning Labs, how does
under where it's on the, when you go to the website and log in, it's just in this black bar over here.
Okay.
It's over here on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And one thing I wanted to show you guys real quick too is how to actually share it to the district library and the school library. If you click on those little hamburger buttons, it'll actually, it's going to be under where it says add to. And if that, let's say that's a lesson that you want to add to your school, then you would click on school. And if it's something that you want to share out with the entire district, then you just click on district library.
All right, Mary, this is Cindy.
Uh-huh.
This may not be determined yet, or since I'm intervention, how we've been using like Voyager for that.
Mm-hmm.
So would I want to create my own lessons probably for that on Nearpod if I were to do it that way?
Yes. Yeah, because Nearpod, the student-paced lessons that he showed you is great for differentiation and intervention.
Okay.
You could find something, I'm science, a lot of science. So you could find something on life cycles at a 4th grade level, but then you don't have everybody reading at a 4th grade level. There would be something at a 3rd grade level too, already created, a 2nd grade level. You might just have to tweak them a little bit, but you could use those different levels for intervention.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what Mary said too is that there is just an absolute plethora of information and lessons that are good for a very diversified group of students. So if you do have students who are English language learners, there are lessons that are tailored to that. So you can also search for lessons by filtering. So if you click on this filter button, you can also search for lessons that way. Just kind of how, basically the same way that you search for lessons that we talked about when you filter it over here, you can also filter it up here. So say I'm trying to find something on kindergarten for that, well, I can just click kindergarten and search. Are there any questions in the chat or anything else, Mary?
Nope. Nothing
Okay.
in the
All right. Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming, and we will have the level 2 and level 3 Nearpod PD that Mary's going to go over. And I appreciate your time today.
You did great, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sean.
you.
And Mary.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks, Sean.